The rain hammered against the towering glass windows of night enterprises, blurring the city lights below. Inside the luxurious top-floor office, the silence was deafening. Alexander Knight, 32, billionaire CEO, heir to an empire most could only dream of, was staring at a single piece of paper. A paper that had just shattered his world. 6 months. That's what the doctor had said, his voice calm, clinical, merciless. 6 months before his heart would fail completely. 6 months before the empire he built would belong to people who never loved him. 6 months before he disappeared. Alexander leaned back in his leather chair, running a hand through his dark, slightly tousled hair. The sharp jawline, the chiseled perfection, the power he radiated, none of it mattered anymore. For the first time in his life, money couldn't save him. That night, he returned to his penthouse, a cold, hollow place of marble floors and gold chandeliers. He stood by the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, drinking in silence. The lights of New York glittered like tiny stars, mocking him. And then his eyes landed on her. Downstairs, in the grand kitchen, Leela Monroe, his maid, quietly wiped the counter. She was only 21, soft brown hair tied into a loose ponytail, wearing a plain white uniform slightly too big for her small frame. Her movements were delicate, precise, almost graceful, as if she belonged in another world. Alexander knew little about her, except 2 things. She worked endless shifts to pay off her father's debts. And she always avoided his gaze. Tonight, though, he couldn't look away, because as he stared at her, an idea formed, dark, desperate, and selfish. He hated himself for thinking it, but he was a dying man, and dying men didn't have time for morals. When Leela finally finished, she gathered her cleaning supplies, ready to slip out quietly like always. But Alexander's deep voice stopped her. Leela. She froze, straightening immediately. Yes, sir. Come upstairs. Her brows furrowed slightly. Upstairs? She echoed, hesitating. Yes. His tone left no room for argument, though it wasn't harsh, just unreadable. A few minutes later, she stood in his study, wringing her hands nervously. Alexander sat behind his mahogany desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, a glass of whiskey in hand. The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken tension. He studied her in silence for a long moment, his gray eyes unreadable. Then, finally, he spoke. Sit down. Leela obeyed, perching on the edge of the velvet chair, her posture stiff. Alexander set his glass down slowly, leaning forward, elbows on the desk. Tell me, he said softly, do you trust me? Leela blinked, startled by the unexpected question. I work for you, sir. Trust isn't really. Answer me. His voice was calm but commanding. She hesitated. Yes, I think so. He exhaled sharply, leaning back. Good. Because what I'm about to ask will change your life. Leela's heart skipped. Sir. Alexander's jaw flexed, his knuckles tightening around the edge of his desk. I don't have much time left. She frowned, confused. I don't understand. I'm dying, Leela. Her breath caught. For a moment, she thought she misheard him, but his eyes, dark, haunted, and raw, told her he was telling the truth. Before she could speak, he continued, his voice lower, rougher, ideographic period, and before I go, there's something I want. The room seemed to freeze around them, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Alexander's gaze locked onto hers, unflinching, unyielding. I want you to spend one night with me. Leela's eyes widened, her lips parting slightly in shock. What? I'll take care of you, he said, his tone steady, resolute. Your father's debts, your future, everything. One night, that's all I ask. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Then Leela stood abruptly, her chest scraping against the floor. This is inappropriate, sir, she whispered, her cheeks burning crimson. Leela, I'm not that kind of girl, she cut him off, her voice trembling. I thought you were better than this. She turned, heading for the door, her pulse racing, but his voice stopped her again, softer this time, almost broken. I don't want your body. She froze. I want a memory, he said hoarsely. One perfect memory before I die. Leela slowly turned back, her breath uneven, heart pounding painfully in her chest. And in that moment, for the first time since she met him, she saw something strange in Alexander's eyes. Not power, not control, not arrogance, but loneliness, a kind of loneliness so deep it frightened her. She didn't answer him. She couldn't, because deep down, she already knew, whatever decision she made tonight, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. Leela didn't sleep that night. The moment she got back to her small servant's room on the far end of the penthouse, she sat on the edge of her narrow bed, hugging her knees tightly. Her mind wouldn't stop replaying his words. I want you to spend one night with me. She pressed her palms against her ears as if she could force the memory away, but it was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, Alexander Knight, untouchable billionaire, the man who owned this building, this city, her debts, her entire future. And yet tonight, he'd looked broken. Leela buried her face in her hands, her chest rising and falling unevenly. No, she whispered to herself. I can't, I won't, but even as she said it, doubt crept in like a shadow. The next day, she tried to act normal, tried to hide the storm brewing inside her. She served breakfast in silence, avoiding his gaze completely. But she felt his eyes on her, sharp, piercing, unreadable. Alexander sat at the head of the long marble dining table, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. He didn't look like a man dying. He looked powerful, untouchable, the kind of man who could buy and destroy entire empires before lunch. And yet his silence unnerved her more than his proposal had. Finally, unable to bear it, she blurted out, about last night. His silver-gray eyes lifted slowly, meeting hers across the table. Yes. Leela swallowed hard, her throat dry. I can't accept. I'm sorry. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he set down his coffee cup carefully and leaned back, steepling his fingers beneath his chin. I see. His tone was calm, almost too calm, but his eyes darkened ever so slightly. You think I'm disgusting, don't you? Leela's eyes widened. No, that's not. I'm not like that, Mr. Knight. Alexander, he corrected softly. She blinked. Sir, my name, say it. Leela hesitated. Alexander. Something unspoken passed between them then, a crack in the ice, small but undeniable. Do you know why I asked you, Leela? He asked suddenly, leaning forward, his voice low, rougher than before. She shook her head, frowning. No. And I don't want to know, but he ignored that, continuing anyway. "I've spent my entire life building this empire," he said, gesturing vaguely at the vast city skyline beyond the glass walls. "Money, power, control. I've had everything people kill for." He paused, his jaw tightening. "And yet when I got that diagnosis, the first thought in my head wasn't fear. It wasn't regret. It was this." He met her gaze, holding it firmly. "I realized I've never been loved." The word hung in the air like something fragile, forbidden. Leela's lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. "I've never had someone look at me and see a man, not a name, not a wallet, not a title. Just me." He exhaled shakily, leaning back, his eyes momentarily distant. "And then I saw you." Leela's heart skipped. "Me? You?" he said firmly, as though there was no question. "You're the only one in this entire house who doesn't treat me like I'm untouchable. You don't beg, you don't flatter, you don't lie. You exist, Leela. And when you do, it feels real." She swallowed hard, her chest tight. "And you think one night fixes that?" she whispered. "No," Alexander admitted quietly. "One night won't fix anything." He leaned forward then, his voice dropping to a near whisper, his gray eyes burning with something she couldn't name. "But one night, I'd finally know what it feels like to be close to someone before I go." Leela pushed back her chair suddenly, standing so fast it scraped against the marble floor. "You can't ask me for that," she said sharply, her voice trembling. "I'm not someone you can buy, Alexander." His gaze softened, surprisingly gentle. "I know. Then why?" "Because I'm dying," he interrupted, his tone quiet but firm. "Because I don't have time to pretend I don't want things I've never had." Her throat constricted. She wanted to scream at him, wanted to tell him he was cruel, unfair, impossible, but instead, she said nothing. Because the truth was, a part of her understood him, that scared her more than his proposal. "Just think about it," Alexander said finally, rising from his chair. Leela turned to leave, desperate to escape his presence before her thoughts tangled even further, but his next words froze her mid-step. "Your father's debts," he said casually, as though discussing the weather. "I can make them disappear. Tonight." Her head whipped around, eyes wide. "How do you?" "I know everything, Leela." His voice was smooth, deliberate. "The hospital bills, the collectors, the eviction notices. I could wipe it all away with one call." Her breath caught, her hands curling into fists at her sides. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Life isn't fair," Alexander said softly, stepping closer until his presence swallowed the space between them. For a moment, their eyes locked, his gray storm against her soft brown warmth, and for the first time since they met, Leela didn't feel like a maid. She felt seen. But just as quickly, she tore her gaze away, forcing herself to breathe. "I need time," she whispered. He nodded slowly, expression unreadable. "Take it, but don't take too long." And as she walked away, heart pounding violently, she realized something terrifying. It wasn't his wealth tempting her. It wasn't even his offer. It was him.